All right, let's cover what's happening in Toronto's residential real estate market. The first slide that I'm sharing with you is the number of new listings that became available in the market. On the right side of this slide, the blue chart, you will see that for the month of May 2024, we had about 2,900 freehold properties being offered, which is approximately a 14% increase from last year for the month of May. On the left side of this slide, the green chart, you will see that it's the same concept for the month of April. So I'm providing a month over month as well as a year over year perspective. And for the month of April, we also had an increase in terms of number of freehold properties that was offered, 27% more than the prior year. And we've seen a trend where month after month, we are seeing more properties being offered in the market, for sure on the condo side, but also on the freehold side. And that's a sign that there's a higher participation of sellers in the market. Next slide will show you the number of transactions, so the corresponding transactions to those properties being offered. So this year, for the month of May, for example, we had about a 13% decrease in terms of number of freehold properties being transacted. So if you remember from the previous slide, we had a 14% increase in terms of number of properties that are being offered and a 13% decrease in terms of number of properties being purchased. So that balance of supply and demand is what we call a sales to listings ratio. It was tilted more in favor of a buyer. I will show you later. On the left side of the slide, the green chart will show you the same concept for April. For April of this year, we had almost the same number of transactions on the freehold comparing to last year, April. But again, if you remember, we had almost about a 27% increase on the supply level. So the supply went up by about 27%, but transactions were the same. And then in the month of May, they were actually lower by 13%. So this is all pointing towards an environment where perhaps things are getting more in favor of buyers than before. What is that balance? We'll have to determine that. The other thing that I always ask is, what is the norm for that given month in terms of properties being offered and transacted? So I go back 12 years and I analyze the market for the month of May, for example. This chart will show you the number of transactions as well as the number of properties that were offered. So on the top line, you will see properties being offered, and the bottom line is the corresponding transactions. This is for the month of May going back 12 years. As you can see, this year we had about 2,900 properties being offered, but we had about 1,200 transactions. So those two lines are not moving in the same direction. They usually moved in the same direction, where you had more properties being offered as well as more transactions. But this year, I believe the supply side of freehold properties in Toronto are higher than the transactions, and that will make the environment more favorable for buyers overall. Now, it was heavily in favor of sellers, so perhaps we could say that this is more of a balanced environment, but we'll see. The next slide will show you that supply and demand ratio, the sales to listings ratio. So on the right side of this slide, you'll see that we had a 42% sales to listings ratio for freehold properties in May versus 56% last year. And on the left side is the numbers are for April, just to give you a month over month perspective. We had a 45% sales to listings ratio as opposed to 63% sales to listings ratio. Now, anything above 50% is a strong seller's market. And then below that, you're looking at between 50 to 40%, you're looking at a balanced market. And below 40%, we could argue that it's a buyer's market. I'm not arguing that we are in a buyer's market for freehold properties at all. But I am showing you, based on numbers, that we are getting into an environment where things are more balanced as far as buyers and sellers are concerned, with the more participation from sellers overall in Toronto. Now, this slide is showing you that ratio of sales to listings for the month of May. Again, going back 12 years, what is the norm? This is the result of dividing the bottom line to the top line. It will give us the ratio. And this year we were at almost 42%, which is similar to 2022 May. And if you remember, in 2022, that was the start of Bank of Canada increasing interest rates, that shock that was delivered to the market. But we also had a similar sales to listings ratio this year. And if you can see, as you can see from the chart, The norm that the market is used to, at least going back 12 years, is a very strong seller's market on the freehold properties, everything above 55-60%. And the only other time that we experienced a low number was in May of 2017. Moving on, also try to form an opinion on the temperature of the market by calculating the level of supply that is in the market. Basically, trying to answer this question of how many months would it take for the current properties that are in the market to be sold based on the performance of the past 30 days, month of inventory. The higher that number, the more supply, and there are more options for buyers, and that's a leading indicator for price. So, and I also divide this measurement based on different segments of properties in the market. But as of June 20th, we were at 6.9 months of inventory for freehold properties in Toronto above 2.5 million, and at 2.3 months of inventory for freehold properties under 2.5 million. The other thing I will say is months of inventory is a snapshot of the market on that particular date. It's very similar to financial statements, let's say like a balance sheet. It's a snapshot of the company on that day. And then one way to utilize this information is to say, okay, what was the snapshot a few days ago, a few weeks ago, and then what's the trend? Is it going up or is it going down, the supply levels? So the next chart will show you the same concept as of May 5th. So as of May 5th, for example, we had 5.2 months of inventory for freehold properties above 2.5 million. So this supply level is picking up across all categories except for condos. We had a slight decrease in inventory for condos, and the reason for that is there was a higher participation from buyers on the entry level after they introduced the first cut. But there was also a higher participation of sellers after the first rate cut because they were waiting for it. There was a backlog of sellers. Everybody talks about the backlog of buyers, but I also think that there was a backlog of sellers deciding to sit on the sidelines and enter the market in a more favorable environment. And then we're seeing that happen. That's it for my update for overall Toronto's residential real estate market.